Welcome back, everyone. All right, let's just jump right into it today. We're undertaking an incredibly chilling explainer of local folklore, a story that perfectly meshes modern ambition with some truly ancient, terrifying mythology. We're going to map out this massive clash between man and nature, tracing every dark twist of the legend known as the Curse of the Rakhandar. So think about this. What actually happens when unlimited human wealth completely collides with ancient, unseen forces? It's literally the perfect setup for a midnight thriller, right? We're dropping straight into this high-speed narrative to find out. I mean, imagine having so much money and power that you genuinely start to believe the rules of the natural world just don't apply to you anymore. Let's see exactly how well that plays out. Section 1, a terrifying night. The nightmare begins. Picture this for a second. Billionaire Kuber Singhania is absolutely tearing down a pitch-black road in this ridiculously expensive luxury car. He's had way too much to drink, he's got a cigar in one hand, music playing, and then, out of nowhere, an old man just appears in the headlights. Kuber crashes into him, slamming his car right into a tree. He's bleeding, completely dazed, and he looks over to see the old man sitting on the asphalt, totally unharmed, just laughing at him. Then, and this is where it gets crazy, the old man starts barking, like a dog. He actually summons a pack of wild dogs out of the woods, and they absolutely swarm Kuber. He barely scrambles away, running blindly onto the highway, only to get hit dead on by a massive truck. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast between what Kuber saw in reality. That gruesome, bloody crash, the wild dogs getting hit by a truck, it was 100% a hallucination. The reality is that Kuber Singhania is actually lying completely unharmed in a sterile, padded psychiatric bed. His wife and son are right there next to him, and his best friend, who happens to be a doctor, is literally prepping him for shock therapy because Kuber has just totally lost his grip on reality. So how on earth did a guy with the entire world at his fingertips end up trapped in a padded room, completely terrorized by his own mind? Well, to understand that madness, we need to look at Section 2, Singhania's greed. Let's rewind the timeline a bit and investigate exactly who this arrogant billionaire is and what led him straight to that hospital bed. 90%. That number right there tells you everything you need to know about his power. Kuber's construction empire, Kuber Properties, literally built 90% of the buildings in Sarlarganj city. We're talking about a guy who casually rubbed shoulders with the state's chief minister. When you have that level of astronomical wealth, it's pretty easy to develop a massive god complex. To Kuber, regular people were just insects. If he liked a piece of land, well, it was his. End of story. So, what's a guy like that going to set his sights on next? Kuber targeted this massive 100-acre ancient forest. It was an absolute gold mine, packed with rare timber and incredibly rich mineral deposits. But there was a catch. This forest was already home to indigenous tribal people who'd lived there for generations. It's that classic, all-too-familiar story of corporate overreach, right? Wealthy interests just bulldozing local communities for a quick buck. Kuber, completely blinded by greed, just assumed his bottomless bank account could buy them out. He threw cash at them, totally expecting them to pack up their lives and leave their ancestral home. But man, did he underestimate the deep, spiritual bond these locals had with their land. Which brings us to Section 3, the legend of Rakhandar. So who or what actually stood in the way of Kabir's real estate empire? Let's dig into the dark folklore of this forest. You see, the tribals flat out refused to leave because of the Rakhandar. Now, this isn't just your standard night watchman or security guard. In local lore, the Rakhandar is this unseen, omnipresent guardian entity. It literally dictates the boundaries of the forest. It watches every single step you take, every swing of an axe, and it deeply scrutinizes your intentions. If you enter the woods with respect, the forest provides for you. But if you walk in there with malicious, greedy intentions, the Rakhandar delivers some seriously terrifying punishment. And honestly, what's super fascinating here from an anthropological perspective is just how widespread this belief actually is. This guardian has so many regional names. You'll hear it called Vandevta, Vandevi, Gramrakshak, Jungle Baba, or Buddhadev. The names shift depending on exactly which village or region you're in, but the core function is always exactly the same: the fierce, uncompromising protection of nature from human greed. Moving on to Section 4, Forest Takeover. So, as we know, the tribal people rejected Kuber's buyout. They told him they could never ever abandon the guardian deity that had protected their ancestors for centuries. To a billionaire who literally always gets his way, that refusal wasn't just a hurdle, it was a massive personal insult. Since his money was useless, Kuber pivoted to some incredibly cruel tactics. First, he secretly poisoned the tribal's animals. When that didn't work, he actually orchestrated small forest fires. He was trying to trick the locals into thinking their own deity was angry with them so they'd run away in fear. But they didn't budge. They stayed right where they were. Extremely frustrated and arrogant as ever, Kuber makes a fatal mistake. To prove to everyone that this deity was nothing more than a silly myth, he personally marched in, uprooted the physical idol of the Rakhandar from beneath a sacred tree, and just threw it straight into the water. And boom, that is exactly where our timeline connects. The very night Kuber desecrated that idol, his horrifying hallucinations kicked in. That brutal car crash, the laughing old man on the road, the wild dog attack, all of it triggered the exact second he decided to disrespect the forest's guardian. The psychological torture was just so intense and unrelenting that it shattered his mind, bringing this whole explainer full circle right back to that sterile hospital bed. But hold on, because the story definitely doesn't end in that psychiatric ward. This is Section 5, Terrifying Revenge. Nature fights back. Picture Kuber, all alone in his pitch-black hospital room at night, completely paralyzed by his medication. And then, the laughing old man from his hallucinations, the actual manifestation of the Rakhandar, finally steps out of his nightmares and into reality. The climax here is absolutely terrifying. First, every single light in the hospital just shuts off. That clean, sterile medical smell is instantly replaced by this thick, overwhelming stench of wet mud and rotting leaves. Then, the impossible happens. The solid, white hospital walls actually turn into rough tree bark. The entire room just transforms into the ancient forest. A massive crack splits the floor open and the Rakhandar emerges. These huge, dark roots shoot up from the ground, wrapping tight around Kuber, dragging him down and physically reclaiming him into the earth while he's just screaming for his life. Right before Kuber gets pulled under for good, he's begging, pleading for his life. He promises to give it all back. The land, the trees, the millions of dollars, everything. But the Rakhandar just looks at him and delivers this chilling final verdict, sounding like the voice of the forest itself. The forest does not take alms. Wow. I mean, it's such a powerful statement. It hits the absolute moral core of this legend right on the head. Nature's justice cannot be bought off with a billionaire's checkbook or some desperate, empty apologies. And the aftermath? It's just as wild. Kuber Singhania completely vanishes from all official records. When the doctors finally check on his room, he's gone. And sitting right there on the floor is just a small, single plant. But you know how it goes. The cycle of arrogance is incredibly hard to break. Fast forward a year later, and his son, Robin, who clearly learned absolutely nothing from his dad's disappearance, attempts the exact same corporate takeover of that very forest. The result? Robin's body is found scattered in pieces deep within those woods. So that leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to wrap up our explainer today. When human greed just blindly consumes everything in its path, who is the actual monster? Is it the supernatural beast defending its home, or is it the billionaire willing to destroy literally everything for a profit? It is such a fascinating question, and this folklore really forces us to take a hard look at unchecked wealth and how we treat the natural world. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this story investigation. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will catch you in the next explainer.